On the New York Rangers beat for the New York Post, always a pleasure to welcome Mollie Walker into the show. And Mollie, let's start with the signing of Zach Jones. On the surface, looks like a great deal for the Rangers. Could there be some ripple effects from that into how they build out the rest of their blue line?
Well, I think more of the ripple effect will come from Keandre Miller's next deal. That's probably the more important one. But what this is telling us now is that the Rangers are thinking that Zach Jones has graduated from the AHL. And just like last season, he did compete for a spot at a training camp, which he did kind of win, even though he went back and forth with Libor Hayek for a majority of the season until Ben Harper came in. But they're going to be in a very similar situation at the start of the season with Zach Jones. And the hope is that he will be able to seize that third pair role next to Braden Schneider. But he is going up against Ben Harper, 6'6", and Gerard Gallant obviously had a he liked a bigger body defenseman on the back end. So that's why they got Nico Mikkola and went back and forth between those two. But who knows what Peter Laviolette is going to prefer, but Zach Jones should definitely be in the mix for the Rangers D-corps next season.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Mollie, to see potentially some of the stylistic changes and preferences between the coaching staffs. But wanted to ask you how you think this Rangers team improves. Like, what would be number one on your priority list positionally to make this Rangers team better next season?
Well, I think a lot of the onus falls on these star players. I think last season they came off of such a big playoff hangover, and it took a really long time until Jacob Trouba threw his helmet across the ice that they kind of snapped back into it. And I think the key for them is going to be coming to the season strong and maintaining that for the entire season and proving to themselves confidence-wise that what happened in the playoffs last season, first round exit to the Devils, which was colossally disappointing, doesn't define them. It should just be a bump of the road on their way to the bigger picture of hopefully hoisting the Stanley Cup at one point. But I think a lot of it is going to be confidence and shaking off last season, because it obviously did not go how anybody thinks that it should. I think that it definitely is going to be a forward's responsibility going forward.
You look at the two teams who just won the Stanley Cup in the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. They both made seismic changes to their cores at some point. The Eichel trade, the Tkachuk trade. When you look at this summer for the Rangers, you mentioned coming off the bitter disappointment of losing to the Devils. Do you get the sense that they could want to make a big change to the core, or is this a run it back kind of scenario?
I don't. I definitely think it's a run it back scenario, especially when you just look at the way that their cap is situated at this moment in time. So many of their top players, their core players, there's so much money wrapped up in them, so many no move clauses, so many no trade clauses. This is their core. This is who they have for the foreseeable future. And I definitely think that last season they're not. And I don't necessarily think it was a personnel issue so much as a performance issue in the first round of the playoffs. So hopefully in their eyes, they see this as an opportunity to rewrite that. And I don't think that there's any, inclination to tear it all down at this moment in time. I think that they worked really hard to acquire the players that they did, and that they do want to see this through for the time being.
Yeah, Mollie, I totally agree with you in terms of don't expect any seismic changes. But when it comes to next season, and you look at the kid line, for instance, and the previous reliance on that line to kind of continue to progress and step forward and build their game, it's come in fits and starts, which I think part of it is to be expected. But how long of a leash do you think there is for those guys in terms of if they're not meeting the level of expectation next season? Is that when we could begin to see some change there? Or do you think that's even possible that some of those discussions happen in the short term, given that they're all going to be owed contracts?
Well, definitely. I think especially when it comes to Alexi Lafreniere and Capo Caco, I definitely think they have only so much more amount of time to prove what they can do in this league. I'm very curious to see how Peter Laviolette organizes it. Gerard Gallant obviously went with those three, the kid line, as more of a secondary scoring line. Something tells me Peter Laviolette might want more of a checking line or a matchups line. Gallant wasn't a matchups guy, and I think that the Rangers probably need that a little bit more. I'm not so sure how sold I was on the kid line at all times. They bled scoring chances sometimes, and I think that it's probably time to see if they can make it separately rather than just together. it's up to them to actually do something with the opportunity and show that they can be top 6 contributors, Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere in particular. So I'm very curious to see how they do under Peter Laviolette and what he can bring out of them, especially Alexis Lafreniere. I feel like there are a lot of eyeballs on him this upcoming season, and a lot of onus falls on Peter Laviolette to see what he can get out of him. But it's all yet to be seen, and the leash is definitely getting shorter and shorter every year, and could be rounding out what his future looks like in the NHL, whether it's with the Rangers or not.
A Rangers fan in the YouTube comments saying, no more kid line, please. They're begging for it. Mollie, appreciate your insight as always. Thanks for hopping on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys.